Tuesday, so it's time for us to get into money matters. Today we are focusing on the festive season that's coming up in a few weeks' time, and heart palpitations start rising because we don't only have responsibilities for our own families, but during this time, from an African context, we usually have that extended to even our families in terms of our extension, and it's not so easy, especially when you have to prioritize not just for yourself and your family, but for those around you. Some people are going back to the bundus back home in the rural contexts, and they also have to fit the bill there with the different responsibilities there. There's also ceremony at this time of the year when we gather together, where we have to celebrate the year, reflect the rituals as well in some traditions that are also costly and expensive. With all those costs and stretching with travel costs and gifting, how do you make sure that you set yourself in a good way? We joined on the line by our guest, which is Lerato Mahasha, franchise principal at Meta Heights Capital. Lerato, welcome back on the show.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm saying welcome back. I'm thinking of another Lerato who's been there. So it's a first time. Yeah, no. Askis, Lerato. Lerato, let's talk a little bit about this conversation in terms of the obligation of this coming month, right? Some people have been saving throughout the year. Others have been struggling with that weight of the responsibility that they carry during this festive season. Let's start. What advice would you give people? We usually say this at the end of an interview, but I think we can start it this way. What advice would you give people? Because some people feel guilty and they might not have the money. Some do, and they feel like, you know what, this is a good moment for them to share with others.
Sure. So, I mean, Benjamin, I think, December's a month like any other. I think that's the most important thing, that we just always need to be cognizant of that fact and plan for it as if it was any other point of the year. Yes, it does get busy. It's a joyful season and all of that. But your principles of what we term as 50, 30, 20, which means that 50% of your needs need to be provided for, 30% of your wants, and 20% of your money then should go into savings. So that principle needs to be core to anything that you do throughout the year. And I think possibly the biggest mistake that people make in December is just they're not planning. They're just thinking of splurging, and they're thinking of all the commitments and not planning.
It is splurging time, isn't it? So how do you manage that, seasonal jubilance? Because usually that feeling is associated with spending a lot of money, and also the fact that you still have the coming year to look up to.
Yeah. So I think January should never feel like punishment after all the splurging and everything has happened. And like I said, it's all about having a plan. So be intentional about how you're actually going to go into the season. So make a plan, draft a list, a grocery list, a gift list, everything that you know is expected of you. And make sure that you then keep to that plan. I think for things that might, get out of hand, because potentially you could have like a buffer of about 10 to 20%, but I would limit it to about 10% of your spend, so that you know that if you have to go over and above, the threshold then becomes that 10% extra that you've potentially budgeted over.
Yeah.
So that's something I think is very key to it. And I think even for people, our people we're going on holidays. If you know yourself and you know that you're not necessarily that disciplined, rather draw out the cash and leave it in your house and leave to go mahaying, so that you know that actually there's something waiting for me when I come back.
People are going to drive back home in the middle of the night for 3 hours to go fetch that money again. Okay, Lerato, look.
You can imagine, but it's discipline. You need to just do something,
In January, we already know December is going to come. That's just how years work. There's 12 months, and in January, the months are going to go by and December is going to come. But every month also will present with its own challenges is. The economy isn't that great anywhere you go on the African continent, in fact, in the world. So many of us are living from hand to mouth. But, when there's that expectation, especially if you're someone who works in the city and you have to go back home, there's an expectation of showing up to show that you are the successful one in the family. And all of a sudden, there's going to be hints from your grandmother saying, it would be great if I had a new wall this December. I'm going to have relatives coming through and I don't want them to see my wall broken like this. It would be great if I could repaint the house and, paint it a different color. And they're saying that to you because there's an expectation that you're going to either budge in on that with some money or just do it, the whole project yourself. So what happens when, some of these hints come in last minute and you know that you actually can't afford it? Unfortunately, there are people who try to show up for their family members without actually letting them know that they can't afford some of those things. So I want you to keep that in mind because we need to go to a break and then we'll come back and speak about some of those expectations and how you can or cannot meet them and maybe setting boundaries, which is really the hardest part of this conversation after this break. We're speaking to Lerato and she's going to explain to us, how to really try and, make your festive season still festive, but well within your budget. Of course, your financial health is very important, especially in this time of the year.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Leo tujadili kuhusu chipukizi wanaoimba nyimbo za wasanii wengine. Unadhani hili linatokana na nini, Omari?
Nadhani kweli kwamba tukizama muziki ya sasa hasa wasanii ambao ni chipukizi kwa kweli kwamba yani karibu kutoka muziki wao wenyewe, lakini wanakuwa wanapenda kuhubiria muziki ya zamani za muziki ya wengine ambao ni taimbo.
Wengine wanadai kufanya hivyo ni kupromote vipaji vyao haraka ili waweze kujulikana. Je, yawezekana kukawa na ukweli wowote au ndio kukosa kabisa kipaji cha kuandika mistari?
Unaona kwamba msanii anapoazimia kwamba kuchukua wimbo mwingine wa msanii mwingine na kurudia mara mbili studio, haionyeshi kwamba ndio wanaanza kazi ya muziki aizalini, lakini ukiangalia kabisa asilimia kubwa utakuta kwamba wanakosa ile mawazo ya kutunga muziki.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Ubuntu, I am because you are, is the most common phrase that, in fact, the most common practice, I'll say, in many of our cultures, because we see ourselves as the collective. So in the family, if there's one person who has been able to acquire some sort of success, there's an expectation there that says, yeah, we are now better because you have stepped in. And in many of our families and communities, there's an unspoken pressure to give, to contribute, and to show success through spending, especially around the festive season. We're exploring practical ways to save, to spend wisely, but also to set healthy boundaries around money and giving, particularly in this time of the year, especially if you want to see yourself in the right position in the beginning of the following year as well. We continue this great conversation with Lerato Mahasha, franchise principal at Meta Heights Capital. So let's go into that, right? Before the break, I was like, hey, people are starting to get phone calls, right? Saying, hey, we're going to have a big celebration. We're going to need this and this and that and the other. We might need a cow or a goat to slaughter. Hey, we need, a fresh paint on the walls in the house because it's not looking that great, and so on and so forth. Let's speak about the boundary setting of this conversation because I feel like it's the hardest part to set boundaries, particularly in African families.
100%. Thank you so much, Palesa. And you're quite correct. I think I started off saying that intentionality is very important, but setting healthy boundaries actually goes hand in hand with that. whether it's Hawk or whether it's, your cousins who are now seeing that you're driving or have a new car or have, moved into a new house, you actually need to be able to say, guys, this is as far as it can stretch because I actually have these commitments. It's not like they're paying themselves off. So you need to be able to walk into your family environments and say, this is how much I am able to contribute. You need to be able to walk in and say, guys, I have no issues hosting this year, but these are the limits. Can we rather than do a bring and share, for instance, where there are those specific shortfalls? You need to be able to say, I have a 500 Rand or whatever the amount is budget for gifts, so that everybody is very clear that that's it. We can't now, wait for something that goes or falls outside of that particular parameter that you've set for them. I think another thing that I really like to speak about is also, Christmas at the end of the day, it's not just about, gifting. If you guys can sit as a family and decide, we always do all this planning of, we're going to theme it out and all of this, but if we can always have a family philosophy going into the festive season that, what is it that we're doing this year? Is our show and face to the world that we are giving. So are we going out there to give the gift? Do we want to receive the gift? And when you can actually create a philosophy for yourselves and know where you guys stand as a family, it can also be that, guys, this year we're having a charity drive, and what we are all gifting is that we're going to go donate something, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's money. We're all collectively making this contribution so that we can then, pay it forward. Yeah. So sometimes we must need to, set our mindset and say, it's not just about us. What can we do beyond ourselves as well?
Yeah, but man, at the end of the year, it must happen. And that's the thing, right? Is that some of the responsibilities are equated to prestige or a sense of I'm successful. So if you come back to the village without anything and without much contribution, your status can be questionable, right? How do you break from that mold? Because I think sometimes we don't translate how difficult it is here in the city.
100% sure. And again, it's the mindset. I think you also, to a certain extent, we also show people how we want to be treated. So it's also having that particular asset or having that facade of yourself that also then allows people to then say and have an expectation of how you're going to show up. But again, I go back to it to say, set the boundary. This is how I'm showing up. If this is all I can give, and all you could give it is potentially, the most expensive thing on the item on the list, that should be fine. And that is it. After that, it's a no. And you need to be very clear and intentional about it's a no, guys. Unfortunately, I don't have the means. I'm not trying to be, a strange person about it. That's it. Because guess what? January should not be, a very daunting season on me as well. We need to think past today and think about tomorrow.
So true. One of the ways that we can start helping ourselves, this is a financial conversation. I know it has a lot of emotion in it because it pulls on the heartstrings of the people that we love. But are there ways, tools, apps, maybe it is a technological time, that we can use to try and create systems that can help us give to the capacity that we have and also save as much as we can?
100%. I think within my practice, specifically Meta Heights, we've actually looked at, something around people's bonuses, whether your bonus is December, whether you're getting it in January, February, March, to say, here's a tool that you can actually use to help you to actually then create those specific boundaries. And going back to that budgeting rule that I referred to, 50, 30, 20. So we want to make sure that once you use this tool, and we can make it accessible to everybody, and I'll give you the contact details for us to share it with you. Once you actually start inputting into the tool, it will then actually help you to segregate, those different areas of your financial needs and your budgeting around.
Yeah. As we wrap up the conversation, just an overall thing to look out at this time of the year. I think also one of the things that people aren't looking out for is the flow of money inside of their accounts during the season, and they kind of let down their guards. Just your help as we wrap things up.
Again, I think, you just want to be mindful. I like people and I like a strategy where we do have different types of accounts for different things. And even going into sort of thinking of the new year, it's important for people to start having that particular mindset to say, I'm using this account. It will only actually be for what's going to fund December. I'm using this account. It's more of my 5-year plan towards maybe a deposit for the house type of thing. And just the discipline for yourself to say, I'm not going to be able to tap into that. You need to, know yourself and you know what goals you're working towards. So you need to actually, what helps is when you have like your banking products sometimes, or when there's penalties for actually accessing a certain amount of money, you don't necessarily want to bear the cost of that. So you limit yourself to say, this is it. It's time for me to actually tap into this account, therefore I will, but I'm going to avoid the cross-transactional patterns that actually then happen. It's just a discipline, unfortunately, that you need to put in place. And again, the best thing is to, if you can lock it away because you lack that bit of discipline, that's the best way. Lock it so that it's basically impenetrable until you actually need it.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation with you, Lerato. Where can we find you or Meta Heights Capital?
Perfect, and thank you so much for having me. You guys can actually contact us on our WhatsApp. Our number is 083-846-8197, and I think anybody who just drops us a message there will be able to share the tool with you, and if need be as well, I'm happy to facilitate a one-on-one consultation and actually help you through your December budgeting, help you through any vision boards that you might have for the year ahead, etc., etc.
Fantastic, Lerato. Join us again so I can say, hey, there's Lerato. She's back on the show, right? Like the era that I meet.
You started off. Definitely.
I enjoyed hanging out with you, Lerato. That's Lerato Mahasha, franchise principal at Meta Heights Capital. Hey,